I very specifically want to address the question centered around uncertainty. A lot of us are experiencing it. And for many of us, given the fact that we are predominantly in the business-to-business space, uncertainty impedes and affects the way that you make your future decisions and investments. Prior to COVID, there were three predominant levers of change that were affecting businesses globally. And we were seeing this right across the US and the UK especially. The first is around climate change itself. Climate change legislation is only becoming more and more severe. We foresee in South Africa, one of the biggest opportunities ahead in the industrial economy is carbon elimination. For all of you involved in the industrial landscape, whether you be consulting engineers and services, or whether you be involved in making steel structures and fabrications for the industrial sector, have a look at that space, because carbon elimination, despite the fact that the South African government has no money, the South African government is going to have to start investing in privatization initiatives to ensure that we get our entire energy sector carbon reduced. The reason for this is if we do not, we're going to start being excluded out of global trade. Already, there's been a spat between the United Kingdom and the South African government. The United Kingdom changed at the beginning of this month all its COVID travel regulations. South Africa remained on the red list, despite the fact that our stats were outperforming the US and were outperforming the UK itself. And the reason for that was because of a political diplomacy gaffe that the South African government had made with the United Kingdom. It was resolved last night, and we're now free to travel into the UK. If we have a look at what Trump did on trade, if you don't agree with the American policy, over a period of time, what he started to do was introduce tariffs. He started to make travel and trade far more difficult. That tool remains in play. And climate change legislation is going to start coming through in that shape and form, which means that climate change is now one of the most fundamental levers of change in business today. The second one that we argued was technology. The rate and pace of technological adoption and change is superseding any of our abilities as human beings to embrace and adopt it. And we're seeing it right across sector and right across industry. Of a day, should you not be attuned to where technology trends are moving, a good business today can find itself largely made redundant tomorrow, where someone from a completely different destination and location comes and starts to nibble away at the bottom end or top end of your market. And they're able to do so because of the technological advantages that their business efficiencies have driven for them. And then the third lever of change is what we refer to as economic exclusion, which is fundamentally different to income inequality. Economic exclusion is what drove Trump's success in the former election in the US. It's what heavily impacted Brexit. Brexit didn't make sense, it still doesn't make sense. And already we're seeing all these crises emerge in the UK, where they have fuel shortages, they have pea shortages as a result of climate change, and pea shortages are affecting the entire vegan industry, which is a burgeoning industry across the United Kingdom and the US, because pea is one of the most fundamental elements of protein in a vegan-based product and foodstuff diet. So those three levers of change are impacting everybody. We need to learn how to look at things differently. From a South African point of view, and I'll give you a great example. Technology. The recycling industry is heavily impacted by climate change legislation. One of our clients is a very well-established recycler. They were doing 4 million rands a month in revenues. 20 months later, they're sitting on just on 6.2 million rands a month of revenues. And because climate change technology or legislation was impacting the industry so severely, over the 24-month period with us, he got his entire business ISO accredited, and he started to map out his system of delivery to meet global ISO requirements, as well as the European climate change regulatory environment. Today, what we're doing with that client is we have relocated the technology that defines his system of delivery in the British Virgin Isles. We've wrapped it into a licensing structure, Sean, which we now offer as practice management software across the United States to all the many, many, many small recyclers that have no practice management capability to meet the new requirements of global climate change legislation. Uncertainty acts in our favor if we learn to look at it differently. Lack of an exit strategy that came out of security, the security sector. Do you remember your question? Let me see if the person who gave it to me smiles, because I can see him on the screen. It's a business involved in security tech installations. And the question came through a lack of exit strategy. Creating an exit strategy in a low growth economy is really hard. It is an 18 to 24-month process. It's not something where of a day you decide you want to exit. And yet, I think the research shows that 89% of businesses that list to sell decided in the quarter pre-listing that they wanted to exit. Those are American numbers. American numbers are very good numbers. They collect stats on everything, including how many times you breathe when you either sit or stand in front of a toilet bowl. They know. 3 months to decide to sell, list your business with a broker, and that's your exit strategy. We find that to get an exit done right, it's an 18 to 24-month period. You need to bake it into your future strategy, then you need to build for exit. If your exit strategy is such that you're looking to sell your business to a third-party buyer, so a corporate entity that's looking for growth or innovation, the way you're likely to build it and design it is very different to the way you might do it if you're looking to exit through succession. When you exit through succession, you're passing on the responsibilities of the business to the next tier of leadership, but you will likely only be paid out over a 36 to 60-month period thereafter. So the way that those responsibilities are handed across needs to be done in a very, very structured way. Anyone in the services sector is likely to exit their business through succession. If you're in the services sector and you're not backed by a product, you need to gear your business for that type of exit. Staff not engaged and attention to detail poor, stemming from lack of focus and a culture of apathy. Folks, where does culture begin and end? It's in the behavior and habits and attitudes of the leadership team. Now, I think that this individual who's involved in the transport and logistics environment has been brought in to right-size the business. He's been brought in to do a turnaround. And my advice is you never ever bring in a leadership tier to your business unless you're prepared to back that leadership tier. The process of succession allows you to hand over responsibilities of the business whilst you carry all the risk of the business in a very structured, methodical way, supported by data, numbers, and habits. It is a slow process. It's not simply a function of bringing in a new leadership tier, an MD, for example, and saying, okay, can you fix the mess I've created over here because I've run out of steam or interest? It's not easy getting it done right. Not enough work, sheet metal fabrication. So I had a look at this business and I had a look at it very closely. because it's one of my favorite businesses. It's an industrial business, and they make real things. They make all the things that hold roofs up above our heads, the steel structures and rafters. And when I went onto the website, what I saw was a business with the most magnificent factory floor. And the factory floors were busy. They had a gallery with what must have been 60 photographs of a factory floor that looked awesome. There were sparks flying everywhere. There was product being made. Machines were operating. That does not bring in clients. It does not bring in customers. A better mousetrap does not get the world to beat a path to your door. And we think that if we can show off that we can deliver what we offer to deliver, that will bring clients on board. In the UK last week, I did a roundtable event with 29 business owners. The average size of the business was a £5 million a year business, £5 to £8 million a year. Dudley, you were there. And it was a roundtable event with senior individuals, owners of their businesses, all in and around, I'm guessing, 50, 55 years of age, not new kids on the block. The average ages of the businesses there were around 17 years. And it was a very, very bold, brave subject called Digital Marketing is Dead. And we spoke extensively around the fact that marketing your business digitally is no longer good enough. And I took a huge risk putting it down, and I did so very tentatively, and Dudley witnessed it. Because certainly across our client base and across our own experience, we're finding digital marketing is failing more and more and more. And what we believe the future holds is that relationship-based marketing is going to become essential. Because if digital marketing is dead, and 28 of the 29 people on that session agreed with me, the only person who didn't, Dudley, was someone who ran a digital agency, if you recall. And we said that relationships are going to be building our future lead generation strategy, not a magnificent factory floor, not incredible machinery, and not lots of photographs of work well done. If we can't get someone to our shop front in this digital global world, they'll never see the magic that we use to promise and build the trust and faith that we can do what we say we do. A business has to be client-led, not product and not capability-led. And client-led means we need to find who it is that we serve, and they need to believe that we can solve a real problem for them. And very often when I sit with the business owner, what problem do you solve? And they, Reg, define the problem. And I say, okay, if that problem is not solved, what is the true cost to that business owner? That cost cannot be quantified. And if a cost cannot be quantified, it means that the problem itself cannot be defined. And if the problem cannot be defined to a point where you can quantify it in terms of rands and cents, or dollars or pounds or euros and pence, it means we have not understood the problem well enough. And if we've not understood the problem well enough, it means it's because it's hard for us to understand who it is in truth that we serve. And that's why positioning is the beginning and the end of the entire design structure around an asset of value. The last one really was around time. And folks, I want to end with this because there's an absolute truth with time. Michael, what is the absolute truth with time? The one truth that, whether we like it or not, is a truth and it's absolute.
Never enough of it. That's generally, I think, everybody's sentiment must be.
There's never enough time. No, close, but not quite. The absolute truth is that we can never get it back. With the right design, there's enough time. With the wrong design, there's never enough time. And we can never get it back, and it runs out. And because we do what we do, and we think about this right across a wide range of businesses and individuals, we've seen that there are two ways to use time. You can either spend it or you can invest it, much like money, much like water. You can cast water on the earth, or you can till the ground, prepare the ground, fertilize the ground, seed the ground, and invest water into that ground. And beyond our own lives, within our businesses, we should be thinking about to what extent do we spend time doing things, and to what extent do we invest time doing things. Investing time is where our attention and focus and our activities are governed by structural elements in our business. Spending time is where we deal with all the urgent matters of the day in and day out, much like the baker did. There's not one person on the screen who doesn't have the ability to treble and quadruple their revenues in the next 2 to 3 years. If that activity sees you designing the business to deliver it, because structure determines behavior and behavior determines an outcome, think about it. It's within all of our control to achieve that. The story of the baker today, he did not sell his business. 14 years on, that bakery does 1.3 billion rands worth of revenue. We met with him when he was 55 years of age, having been in that business for 29 years before. He doesn't work any harder than any of you. He's not smarter than any of you. He's no different to any of us. The right design gives you the right outcome. Any questions, folks? Any thoughts? Not. Next steps are, let's meet. Let's have a discussion. My team is on screen. I have a great, great team. They are the co-creators of the entire business that we would present to you and that I presented with you today. And if we can impact your business, we will give you a growth proposal. And if you like it, Sean, we'll then further meet to confirm that we can have the impact we think we can have. And the reason for it is because as growth partners, we do not engage if we cannot grow your business. And we don't engage if we can't grow your business, because if we do, we burn. So we eat our own breakfast. And with that, I look forward to meeting you. Our team looks forward to engaging with you. And most importantly, I hope to one day share your story, much as I did that of the baker. Thank you very much for giving up time to be here.